Hi, my name is Giselle Wellman from Pacific Standard in San Diego, Top Chef Season 13. You're here listening to Sean Rosler from Coarse Grind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is episode number 48 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you as always, host, creator, Sean Rosler. How the hell are you doing this evening? You know, I'd be lying if I said there hasn't been a whole lot going on lately with a little podcast that might be, say this one. I digress. It's been a while since we chatted. I admit I've chatted with a guest and you've listened, and for that my apologies. It's also been a while since anything relatively new has hit the area that's piqued my interest. I say relatively new because I have 3 kids. That being said, imagine my delight when I went into our local supermarket to pick up a sixer and ended up with not only a sample and a pint glass, but a lead to tonight's guests. That's plural, 2 of them. If you say Mifflinburg, you're likely to get the same reaction as people give me when I mention my hometown of Honesdale. Huh? Where's that? But if you mention Rusty Rail Brewing Company, people know instantly where you're talking about, and that's a credit to these folks. Rusty Rail Brewing Company began with a group of passionate craft beer drinkers and a shared dream. In 2013, that dream became a reality with a small batch of beer brewed in the parking lot outside of our brewery in Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania. Since then, after over 2 full years of construction and rigorous recipe trials, they've graduated from a 10-gallon pilot system to a 15-barrel, that's 450 gallons for those of you in the know, brewhouse with 300 barrels of fermentable space. As they continue to grow, their mission is to never lose the look and feel of a small hometown brewery. You'll be able to find their entire team, from the sales and marketing group to brewing and operations staff, out in the market working tap takeovers, beer tastings, beer dinners, and other events. To them, it's just as important to put a smile on your face as it is to put a beer in your hand. Did I mention they have a brew pub too? They do, and an executive chef who's here along with their general manager. So let's cut the shit and bring them out. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, my guest this evening, general manager Rich Schraeder and executive chef Matt Lambert of Rusty Rail Brewing Company. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Doing great. Excellent, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Very glad to have you here. Can't wait to make it out again. Before we get rolling, for folks new to the program, for regular listeners with awful short-term memories like me, has something to do with beer, I've heard. But anyway, there's starters, there's mains, there's afters. Starters, where did the guests, I have to keep remembering to put that S on there, come from? Mains, where are they at? And afters, a couple more off-the-cuff questions, but no one's ever been injured in the history of the show, and I hope not to start that now. So without further ado, gentlemen, tell me about where you grew up respectively and what you grew up eating, and in this case, drinking.
Matt, you want to go first, and I'll jump in? Sure. I grew up in north central PA, Jersey Shore area. Went to Penn State. Ended up moving up into New England region, where I worked for several years and chose to move back to the central PA area. And over the course of many years, I was fortunate enough to end up at Rusty Rail Brewing.
Awesome, fantastic. New England. Whereabouts in New England, Matt?
I worked in Rhode Island, Connecticut, did a little tour duty in Boston area.
Awesome. And how about you, Rich?
Well, I was born in Roanoke, Virginia. Moved as a child all over from Arizona back across the country, back to Virginia. And then in my late teens, moved to Pennsylvania and graduated from Selinsgrove Area High School in 1994. From there, ended up attending Penn College a little bit later. Graduated from there and worked my way through a couple different career paths, which led me to work for the owners of Rusty Rail, Paul and Eric John. Started working for them in 2006, and they acquired the property not too long after that for the Rusty Rail, and then in late 2012, early 2013, I was given the opportunity to start the construction side of the management of the project and work my way into the general manager's position of the overall operations. So that's what has led me to where we are today.
Wow. So, I mean, both of you have a really cool, complex backstory that, obviously doesn't necessarily parallel each other, but yet here you are. And so typically, over the course of the interview, I ask about, the foods, and I feel remiss because we're talking about a brewery, but I'm going to start there because you guys have a restaurant side to the brewing gig, which is super awesome, and we'll get to that more in a minute. But speaking of the food, you're dealing in this wonderful high-end bar fare, which is awesome. What kind of childhood foods did you grow up eating? Like, what were your favorites? What were your absolute no's?
Matt, I got to defer that to you because you're the man on the culinary side.
Well, I mean, from a culinary aspect, the type of food I was exposed to as a kid growing up was very boring. My mom, who, God bless her, she fed a family of 4, and we all grew up to be nice big kids. But I really wasn't exposed to anything out of the ordinary probably until I actually started working in the industry. I grew up in basically a non-ethnic food home. Anything from pot roast to spaghetti and meatballs, but really wasn't, like, again, what I said, I wasn't exposed to anything from a culinary standpoint probably until my late teens when I started working in the industry.
Right on. And I want to get more into that transition in a minute. But Rich, same story, different story?
I didn't have as, obviously, I came to Matt because of his expertise in culinary. My side of it growing up was more, comfort foods, anything in bulk. We didn't have a lot of money, so it was, whatever could be made in large portions, and was pretty much eat what's on the table. So I didn't have a lot of choices. As I grew up, I enjoyed cooking more, and I got the opportunity to do the project with the Rusty Rail, something that attracted me to Matt's resume, and his passions were just his love for scratch cooking and preparing things from scratch as much as possible. And I think that's one of the things that we've kind of tried to highlight with the Rusty Rail is that part of it. So. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I didn't have a lot of culinary influence until after I left home and started doing things on my own and living on my own and having to fend for myself a little bit more. And I think that's when I started to get more into food.
That's awesome. And that's actually a perfect segue. Thank you so much. I'll pay you later for it. For the both of you, and this is one of the most beautiful questions to ask, the culinary professional, the cheesemaker, the brewer, like, you can ask anybody this question, and it's this beautiful story. So I asked the both of you, and again, you can choose who goes first, who goes second. When was the moment? And, like, so many people have that aha moment when you realized food and drink in this case, but, food, drink, overall dining was what you wanted to do with your life. When was that moment?
I'll go ahead, Rich.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, for me, from a professional standpoint, I was probably about 19 years old. I was working in, at the time, what I considered a pretty upscale operation, and a chef that I worked for was pretty influential in kind of the way I think and operate today. Just, he really influenced me and gave me a lot of positive feedback, and I realized for whatever reason, I felt that I was pretty good at what I was doing in the kitchen, and I was excelling at it. So around 19 or 20, I kind of was an eye-opener between just the influence of, like a very experienced, positive chef and some of the other people I work around with. I kind of knew that this was going to be my career path. If you'd asked me when I was 17 or 18, certainly I had other aspirations of what I was going to do. But at that point, in that one operation and the one gentleman I worked with really kind of opened up some doors, and made me aware of what I was going to do the rest of my life.
That's fantastic. That's great. And it's usually in that pocket where that big, like, lightning bolt hits. How about you, Rich?
Definitely very different for me. I had no idea that this is what I was going to be doing. I was, a very much more varied background. I grew up blue collar, ended up going to college for business, worked at a bank, worked in construction sales, then I worked in management. And the whole time I always kept craft beer as a hobby and something I enjoyed. Everywhere I would go, I traveled all over the Northeast and wherever I could go and everywhere I went, I'd always try a new brew pub, and I'd always try a new place and try new beers. And it was just something I'd always come back and talk about when I was, in the office. And at that time I worked for the owners who own Rusty Rail. And, I think everybody kind of knew that I just loved the brew pub culture and, everything about the craft beer industry and the culture of it. And from the food and the beer side of it. And I love to cook, I was a little bit of a foodie myself, but more of a home cooking person, not the professional culinary side like Matt. But I think for me, the moment was when I was sitting in front of the owners and they called me in the office one day and they asked me if I knew of anybody who would help them put a project together, like this. And they mentioned having the building and wanting to repurpose it, and they thought the idea of a brewery or restaurant was a really cool idea, and they asked me if I knew anybody who would want to help them with it. And it was just one of those moments for me where I didn't hesitate, and I just raised my hand and I said, yeah, me. And they kind of giggled. I think they expected that, is why they had me in there, but they wanted to hear me say it and ask for it. And I didn't hesitate, and I think at that moment it kind of all came together. It was like, okay, this could be for real. And we all got excited together, and it was full speed ahead, from there.
Right. And see, that's so, I don't want to say that's typical, but because even 48 episodes in, I don't know what is typical, but it's usually that the culinary guy is like right out the gates. Oh, I was 12 and I was washing dishes and I just knew. And then the guy who kind of falls into it because it's a love of his, like it insidiously like invades your life. That craft beer thing, oh my God. I mean, craft beer is a gateway drug, last I checked. I'm not sure, but if it's not, it should be.
Definitely for me, for me it was. I mean, my son's mother, worked in a craft a brew pub, and I was like family with all those people, and, I just grew so close to that whole culture. So it was a no-brainer when I had the opportunity to do something like that.
Absolutely.
That I'd want to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So here we are. We've got the backdrop. Backdrop, is set. We understand where you guys came from, and look at Rusty Rail Brewing Company now. Holy shit! I mean, we're talking 3 years, but you guys have left an indelible mark on the map, have you not? I mean, how would you, as being part of it, describe the growth you've experienced?
Oh boy. I think I don't know if I can speak for Matt on this, but I can speak for myself. We're so close to the fire, so much. When you're working 10, 12 plus hours a day every day, that sometimes you don't even realize it. You don't realize the growth and what's happening with it until people come in and start telling you about it from the outside.
Yeah.
So I think it really just recently has started to sit in on how much we have grown and how well known we've become, and it's a little humbling because like I said, I don't feel like we were only a little over a year old in the restaurant, and going on 2 years old in the brewery, that it's actually been open. So it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but a lot has happened in that period of time.
Yeah. I mean, it literally went from, I don't want to say it was a rumbling, but it was this like, oh, hey, have you heard of Rusty Rail? And like, this is cool because I can express this as a host because I'm here. It's like, oh, have you heard of it? Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know. I really never made it. Where's Mifflinburg? And now it's like, you can't not hear about it. You can't not go on Facebook and see 10 of your friends checked in there. Like, and here I am with 3 kids going, I want to go out. But it truly has been, I mean, meteoric, I think, might be appropriate here. I don't know. That's just me.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's always meant to be a destination. That was what we wanted the whole time. So it definitely seems that way. You can walk out in the parking lot on a Saturday and see license plates from all over different states and different parts of Pennsylvania and different states, that the people that come from all over the place to check it out. So yeah, definitely. And the brewery side of it, we're in all of Pennsylvania and New Jersey at this point. Hope to be in Maryland very soon, and even possibly North Carolina. So that part is really taking off as well.
Wow, Jesus, you guys are taking off. So let's step away from the brewing of the beer. Let's go food. Let's go menu. Chef, where do you draw your culinary inspiration from? And then I actually want to take a step back and ask the same about beer. So we'll start with the food. We'll start with the menu. Varied menu, awesome menu, not your typical, bar menu, not your typical brew house menu. Where do you pull inspiration from?
From all over the place. Like any chef, I'm inspired from things I've seen at home, things I've seen on television, books, magazines. But I guess my philosophy is I try to put items on the menu that are unique. More importantly, I like to put things on that people aren't going to prepare at home. That it's definitely like an event to come out and eat. So, and again, I try not to do what every other restaurant's doing. So I'm always trying to, push the limit, but make the food still very approachable.
Sure.
Very classic things, bar food, and just kind of try to put like a modern twist on it, and just stay with simplicity and really fresh ingredients also drives it.
Beautiful. I mean, that's brilliantly complex and simple at the same time, and I think that really tends to ring through. Let's look at the beer then on the other side of the coin. You guys aren't just brewing like onesie twosie. I know you had mentioned something about a beer tasting coming up. You guys change your beers with the seasons, yes?
Yeah, we have all of our 4 core brands that we do, and then we do we do 4 seasonals, so 1 for each season, and then we have a separate series that we call the Sidetrack series, which is kind of our way of experimenting and having different beers to try in the pub and out in the market, so that we can decide what is going to be our next core brand or what's going to be our next seasonal. So at any given time, I think right now, if you include the seasonals that we've had this year, as well as the core brands, we're probably rotating through, say, 18 to 20 beers at any given time.
Wow, and that's no small task. I'll throw myself under the bus momentarily. I have the 5-gallon PVC bucket to bucket brew kit, and I've done it for a couple years now, and that's taxing to me. And
yeah,
I am humbled whenever someone from a brewery is good enough to be on the show, and I hear about this gallonage, and it's a lot. I mean, one little thing goes wrong, your whole batch goes bad, right?
Oh yeah, and we're not perfect. We've been pretty lucky. We haven't had many that we've had to dump, but Mish Spusens, who's our brewer, I mean, he should get all the credit for that. He's the guy that started the first, you mentioned the brewing out on the sidewalk outside of the building, in 2013 when we were just trying to figure out what our recipes were going to be. He's the guy that has the palate. He can, like Matt, like a chef, he can take those core ingredients, he can think about what he wants it to taste like, and he can visualize that in his mind and be able to put that into a recipe and then execute that recipe and have it, turn out in 450 gallons to the point where, okay, we're happy with this and we can market it and sell it. And, it takes a lot of practice. Like, he homebrewed for 10 years before he ever, came into the craft side of it, if you will. Right. But then we did another year of just 10-gallon batches in the market where we went to shows for a whole year straight and just dialed those recipes in. But Mish, I think his philosophy has always been to brew beer first, and then everything else, whether it's a hazelnut porter or the peanut butter hefeweizen or raspberry blonde or whatever it is, you have your beer first, and then the other element of that should be kind of secondary and more subtle. Yep. And so that's always been his approach. He wanted to be beer first and then everything else after that, and we've just focused on all the core side of it, the quality of the water and filtration, the quality of the hops, the quality of the grain, and also the yeast and those kind of things, so the core ingredients.
Yeah, for sure. And so, shifting gears back to the food side of things, Chef, over the years, I'm sure there's been something you've put on the menu, you've created for the menu, that has been like your shining star. Is there one in particular that sticks out to you?
On the current menu right now, I'd probably go, we have a pork Osso Bucco dish, which is a braised pork shank. It's a pretty classic preparation, but I can remember, back when I wasn't in the kitchen, I was stuck in an office next to Rich, and we're throwing around menu ideas and menu concepts, and I'm pretty certain I was the only guy in the building who knew what a pork osso Bucco was. I kept telling her, trust me on this one. This could become a signature item. It's just really just down to earth, good comfort food. And we pushed it through, and lo and behold, it's been a menu leader since day one. It's one of those items that even to this day, when I see it go out, out the kitchen on a plate, it just looks good. And I know people see that thing going through the dining room. It's one of those dishes that stands, 4 or 5 inches off the plate, has really strong visual appearance,
right.
Aside from its flavor profile. So it'll probably be on the menu for quite some time.
Yeah, Osso Bucco is sexy. I mean, first of all, the name is just luscious. It falls off your tongue. And then when now, it's got to be good, though. It's got to be well done. And I'm certain if you go to Rail Brewing, it's going to be well done. Is there any personal, spin you put on it?
I mean, there's a few things in the braising process. We have some equipment, a different type of oven that we use to braise it. It's a 14-hour process. It's not rushed through the system. I mean, so it's absolutely fork tender. The sauce is all homemade. We make our own stocks, veal stocks homemade. The mashed potatoes are homemade. There's nothing instant, so everything's scratch prepared. So it just has a solid backbone to it.
Holy crap. All right. I'm just marking here in my margin right now to get that next time we're out. So, switching over to beer, is there a beer in particular that you hang your hats on as being your it girl, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's kind of done this on its own. So many times that happens. I mean, Matt was very definitive about the Osso Bucco. That was something he kind of said, you know what, Rich, this is going to be it, and I give him a lot of credit for having that foresight. On the beer side, it wasn't quite like that. The Wolf King Warrior Stout has become our it's not our sales leader. It's definitely our most popular beer from a social media standpoint, Untapped, Facebook, what have you. Mm-hmm. It's an Imperial Stout with coffee, and I think that just the mixture of the coffee and the type of coffee we use in that stout has a unique flavor to it, and it's a nice balance. And it's 8.2%, so it's not too over the top, but it's still in line with an Imperial Stout. So for some reason, that one has taken off for us, and it's become kind of our flagship to some degree, if you will.
Yeah, man, I hear Imperial Stout, and immediately I pucker a little bit. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to be asleep after 2. But 8.2 is pretty reasonable in that neighborhood, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And we did that because of a couple of reasons behind it. One of the reasons were we wanted to put it in our variety pack, and we wanted to make the variety pack affordable, but still give it nice variety. So that's why we chose that beer, because then we had a nice spectrum from our blonde ale to our pale ale, the IPA, and then the Wolf King. So it was a nice little variety with different ABV volumes, but could still keep the price, under $50 at the wholesaler. Right
on. So, you've got your Osso Bucco, you've got your Wolf Imperial Stout, fantastic offerings. Now we have to visit the ugly side of food. Now, we'll start again with the food side, then go to the beer side. There's so many trends in food. There's so many things that come up, and everybody latches on to them. Is there something, Chef, that is just an unfortunate trend that you're ready to see go away, like yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's that kind of, you see it on TV, that very scientific, gastronomic BS, where people are introducing nitrogen into food, and it seems like it's more like science fiction than actual cooking. I'm more of a old school, down to earth, just take really good, fresh, solid ingredients, make sure you prepare them correctly and consistently, and just have a good, strong flavor profile.
Right.
That'll always be in fashion.
Definitely. How about on the beer side of the aisle?
Well, it's interesting, because craft beer has been just so crazy over the last, it seems like forever now, but at least for the last 7 to 10 years. It's almost like it's coming full circle now, where variety is getting almost overwhelming. And so I think people are starting to settle in, and they're starting to, pick some brands out that they see as their go-to and not have to search quite as much because it is becoming so overwhelming.
Sure.
So for me, I feel like that's a good thing. And we're solid beers. We're not going to ever do anything too over the top, but we will be creative. But we always want to brew something that people feel that consistently they can go back to, and that they know what they're going to get every time.
Yeah, because microbrewing, back in the day was like finding that first, copy of like the actual first Green Day album and holding it close. But then everybody found out about it and everybody flooded it. But I think you're absolutely right that we're kind of entering this leveling out zone almost.
Yeah, definitely, and especially in the larger metropolitan areas, it's becoming pretty saturated. And in our areas, what's nice about Central PA is there's still a lot of room for growth. There's still a lot of people that haven't tried craft beer yet.
Yeah, there's growth there, and there's growth for finer dining. Not necessarily throwing out that term fine dining, which is like a pox on so many people, but finer dining. You're going to go to a place where there's good beer, but there's also good food. There's good food, but there's also good beer. It's a beautiful pairing. Yeah, I feel like we've accomplished a nice balance. I don't think people knew quite. I give Matt a lot of credit for this. When they came into the Valley, people didn't know exactly what to expect from us. They were used to a lot of traditional brew pubs and brew pub fare, and then they come to the Rusty Rail, and it's like they didn't quite know what to expect. Sure. And then they see that menu and the level of attention and detail and scratch cooking and all the things that went into the dishes, and they're like, wow, this isn't what we expected from a brew pub. Absolutely, yeah. And the menu's very, very thoughtful. It takes them by surprise. Yeah, definitely, for sure. It's insanely thoughtful. It's not something somebody just copy pasted from somewhere else. It really, you can definitely feel that. So, wow, I mean, it's amazing stuff. What's next for Rusty Rail? With all that said, what's coming down the pipe? Any big reveals? Any inside scoops I can release here? I know. Again, going back to the beer tasting, you have a seasonal one coming up.
Yeah, we have the winter, our Snowflyer Porter, which is our winter seasonal. That's going out now. It should be in wholesalers. I think on draft. It may already be in bottles very soon. A lot of events coming up. Our event space. Our event facility on our second floor is really growing quickly. Some things maybe Matt would want to touch on. We just released a new menu in our upstairs pub. We have two different bars. We have a first floor bar and a second floor bar. The second floor bar we call our game room. It has pool tables, shuffleboard, dartboard. It's got 6 or 8 TVs, and it's got a very nice menu, which Matt just redid. You might want to talk a little bit about that. And then, I don't know, Matt, do you want to touch on anything to do with the possible winter menu?
Well, yeah. I mean, aside from the new game room menu, I think that's been up and running for 6-8 weeks now. The inspiration behind that was to make, what we call the game room its own destination within a destination. So we're starting to see guests coming to Rusty Rail just to come up to the game room and eat off that menu. So it's a smaller pub-driven fare type of menu with weekly features. As far as the main dining room, we're on the verge of freshening up our Sunday brunch menu, which we do an a la carte brunch every Sunday, it seems very popular. It's very successful. We're very consistently busy, so that menu's going to get a freshen up. And we're going to roll out a new winter menu, which is a freshening of the menu here probably in January. Date hasn't been picked yet. We'll, like any other place, we'll remove a few things, put a few new fresh things in, some seasonal items, and just kind of experiment and push it a little bit.
Beautiful. I love it. I mean, don't mess with success necessarily, but, finessing it and changing it on the season is certainly a good idea in my book. Wow. So, that's the mains, starters mains. Moving on to afters, a couple more off-the-cuff questions. Just getting to know you more as individuals. And we're going to have to go from kitchen to office here. So I'll start with you, Chef. If I'm standing in your kitchen, and you can pick professionally or at home, what music would I hear?
Oh, that's funny because I'm kind of the music dictator at work. You basically listen to what I want to listen to. Pretty much classic rock, and it's kind of like the menu. It's I guess it's kind of the way I operate. Classic rock, but a little bit more obscure, not the typical FM beaten to death music, but I kind of try to look for music that I'm familiar with
Right on.
Does that make any sense?
I follow you. And so we'll make the switch over to you, Rich. In your office, or hey, if you're working in the kitchen, what would you be playing?
Well, it's funny you bring up music because, like Matt, I'm kind of the music dictator in front of house. I actually built my Pandora station for the 3 years prior to us opening and created a Pandora station I call Rusty Rail Brewing, so you can actually go on Pandora and follow it and add it to your stations. And I spent 3 years building that station, and I still work on it to this day. And so music's something I'm very passionate about, and we actually have a different part of our venue called Rusty Rail Live where we have music every Friday night. We have a promoter, his name's John Ratty, and John is excellent at what he does. He was a musician, he used to tour. He and I have very similar tastes in music. It's usually mix of Americana, blues, bluegrass, folk, with maybe a little rock mixed in there. And it's been going really well. We've been getting some great crowds. People are starting to recognize us a little more as a venue, but the acts that we get in, and I have to give John a lot of the credit for that, people have recognized as being nationally recognized acts in a small venue. And so we're getting that sort of intimate dinner and a show. We do a dinner and a show on Friday nights. You get your ticket, you have dinner, and it's more of a listening room type of atmosphere. So, yeah, that's what you find me listening to, either live music or my Pandora station, which is all of those things I mentioned earlier.
That's the way to be. I like it. And I like the whole small venue, big band. That's awesome. That's more people should be paying attention to that. So, again, check out their website, rustyrailbrewing.com, yeah?
Yes, yep, absolutely. Rusty Rail Live, rustyrailbrewing.com. We do a lot of co-ops with different places, the State Theater and places like that. So
beautiful.
Yeah, keep an eye out for it.
Will do. Gentlemen, are you familiar with Melanie Dinea at all?
I'm not.
No, I'm not.
This is not a test. No one will be failed here. So Melanie Dinea wrote a beautiful coffee table book and then a follow-up to it called My Last Supper, and it's part of the inspiration for this interview in that her questions are pre-formatted. You know, they kind of lay out in a nice fashion, but they all center around what would their last supper be. So, Rich, I'm going to start with you. You're checking out tomorrow. Last supper is today. Anything in the world, what would it be and why?
Matt's Osso Bucco, because I have to, because he talked me into it, and it's the most amazing dish we have. So.
Are you hearing this shit, Matt? Like, seriously?
Yeah, I guess I have a purpose for living now. Eat Rich's last dinner.
Oh, that's terrific. Nice.
Matt has to make it, though. That's the only...
Matt has to make it. Oh, okay. No, that's fair. I think we can, maybe make that happen. Unless you're busy, Yeah. What would you have to drink with the Osso Bucco, dude?
My go-to is the Rusty Rail Spike. I mean, I gotta have that. I'm drinking one right now. So
beautiful.
That's my beer.
Beautiful. All right, switch it over to you, Matt. And I know this is late night culinary people like sweat on the brow, freaking out decision. Your last supper, but
well, I had two things pop in my mind right away, and my first one was my standard favorite meal is a meal that anyone else cooks for me.
Beautiful.
So it really doesn't matter.
God, listen. Honest to God, I've had a handful of guests from the show over to our house for dinner, and it's truly rewarding. I want you to know, as a chef, I know when you see smiles on a face, like that feels good. It's the same for us, man, and it's the same position for most of them. Like anything anyone else cooks, I'm good. But
yeah, I'm super happy with. And my second thing that popped in my mind is a Warren Zevon quote. Enjoy your last sandwich. Sometimes just like a good sandwich or a good burger is the way to go. I would say something simple prepared correctly. Like a properly roasted half chicken would be a good last meal.
How about a BLT? A BLT.
Yeah. Something as simple that is so good as a BLT. Correct.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. So, with that said, there's one more question, the shortest, the simplest, and yet the most complex. What is food or drink, either way, to the both of you in a single word, and I'm going to have Matt start. Food to you or drink? What's that?
In a single word, it's life.
Life.
Everything revolves around it. You know, whether you're just eating to survive or eating for the sake of enjoying it or sharing the experience with family and friends, it's life.
I love it. I love it. All right, Rich, you've had enough time to stew on it. What would yours be?
Yeah, well, he nailed it. I mean, I would say, I probably would say lifestyle.
Lifestyle. All right.
You know, it's a way of living. You know, it's a culture, something that people talk about. How do you do it? Your job, all these things. I said, well, you know, it's not. It's a lifestyle.
Right
so
on.
That's how I would sum it up.
Hot damn, guys. Great answers. Great answers. Great interview. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me tonight. Again, the beer tasting's coming up. Plug Rusty Rail Brewing Company, 5 North 8th Street, Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania, 17844, 570-966-7878 for reservations, rustyrailbrewing.com. Anything else I'm missing?
No, you got it. We appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Oh, shit, and the Pandora channel. You guys have a Pandora channel. That's, like, legendary. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Rusty Rail Brewing. Just check it out on there. You can add it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, gentlemen, Rich, Matt, absolute honor to have you on. Be out again soon, and only wish you the best of luck.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 48 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With me, as always, is my producer, Johnny Leland Robinson, the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out his podcast, Cinematic Pig's Feet. And next episode will be 49. Might be a big one. You'll have to stay tuned.